please welcome Jane Anderson. So, Jane, thank you so much for coming to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Shahrul. I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
I have always liked seeing how people connect and influence each other.
Yes.
And I noticed how leaders inspire their team. And I also saw how people build their reputation. And I realized that good communication, leadership, and personal branding can open the doors for someone else. And this made me curious, Jane. How
Right.
did how did you first get interested in those three areas?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a great question. So,
Mm,
I think growing up, uh, I don't know, I've always been interested in teaching and educating. I was lucky that I had great teachers when I was at school, and I used to really enjoy learning from them, and in fact I got quite involved in teaching with them. It was but when I went to university, I had fantastic lecturers, and I thought I was going to do international business. Actually, I did a business degree. I thought I was going to do an international business major, but I had a fantastic lecturer called Lee Bowen, who was my university lecturer, and he just made marketing and communications just so interesting and fascinating. And I was like, actually, I need to do marketing and communication. So I was just really lucky. But what happened, there was a significant thing happened in my second year of uni, which was back in 1997.
mm,
And there was an article written by Tom Peters, which is his landmark article that he wrote for Fast Company magazine. And he wrote this concept about personal branding. And I was like, personal branding, what is that?
mm,
And I thought, wow, imagine a world where we're going into where people have personal brands. Like this
mm,
is fascinating. I thought, wow, that means you could have like yourname.com. I was like, that means
mm,
you're not having Coca-Cola.com or IBM.com, you have yourname.com. So that was where the interest really started. But at the same time, I also worked with a family here in Brisbane, and I worked for a family. The gentleman's name was Sir Robert Mathers. He was knighted by the Queen and for his services to the business community. So I was working with a well-known personal brand at the time. Their business was called Mathers Shoes. The name, the personal brand of the family was called Mathers. And so
mm.
considering I was working for them and this article came out about that Tom Peters wrote, that's when I went, oh, okay. So you don't have to just have, a business of selling shoes. You could sell your knowledge, you could sell your expertise. And that's when I started to realize, oh, okay, well, but everybody has a personal brand then. So that's what kind of led me down the path. I had great leaders, great managers and leaders in my career over the time, and then over that time, just but something in particular happened, which was when when I always knew I wanted to have my own business, and that I'll share a bit more about that in a minute. But that was when I started to really work more in the space. But yeah, university was where it really piqued my interest.
Yeah.
And that was long
So
before the internet. The internet was not even invented back then. I'm showing my age.
I heard you became a manager at just 20 years old,
That's right.
and you supervising the teams much older than you. W- What was that experience like for you?
Oh, well, at the time, I was very naive, Cheryl, because
Hmm.
I'd been working for the family, for the Mathers family in their business since I was 14 years old.
Hmm.
So, but I went to work with another person in their family in the business, which was when they put me in a management role. So I had been, by the time I was 20, I'd actually been managing teams within the business, but I took on the manager's title in the role, but I'd been relief manager for 5 years. Since I was 15, I'd been running some of the aspects of the store myself. But 20 was when they gave me the title when and I was still at university at the time. And
Hmm.
but the oldest team member was all the staff were older than me. So one was 40 years old, and the other one was the manager whose job I was taking over. She was 70, and she'd been the manager for
Mm.
40 years.
Wow.
So that was it. I went in actually very confident and very naive, which was
Mm.
kind of a good thing because I probably would have, if I just didn't know what I thought, oh, how hard can it be? You just got to get
Mm.
along with people. You've got to be able to, get people on side. You've got to bring them on the journey with you. But
Mm.
in my naivety, I didn't think that they would probably be a bit concerned about how young I was.
Mm.
So I didn't see age at all. I didn't see their ages of 70 and 40 and me being 21. Age was just so not even on my radar. I thought we're all just here to do a job and do a great job and work well together. And so I was very naive. So I didn't realize until probably about, probably 6 months into the job that there was a bit of an issue around my age. And
Mm.
so I had to sort of just become a bit more aware, make sure I had them on side with me. I just had to work a little harder on getting them on side with me. It took a lot of
Mm.
listening and actually, and I listened and listened a lot to take on their views, their perspective, what they wanted to see. But I had to do this real balancing act because I could see that the business was not as profitable as it could be, the changes I
Mm.
had to bring in. And they didn't like some of those changes. But what did happen was that the revenue doubled within 12 months of that store. And that's when I went
Mm.
on to become an area manager. And then I started to do the same thing in the other stores. But yeah, so I was confident until I hit a bit of a brick wall because of my age.
I'm a little bit shocked, Jane, when I hear you become a manager at 17.
Yeah, I'd started to
Oh.
manage the teams at 17, but I didn't actually, because I was doing manager's relief, like the manager would go on leave for a month. So I would go in and manage the team for a month. But then I actually
Mm.
got the formal manager's job at 20.
Honestly, I don't have any experience becoming a manager at a very young age, but I did have experience supervising the team
Oh,
that
terrific. Okay.
that much more experience than me.
Right.
And
Are they?
I spent 6 months working on a construction site,
Okay.
and I was a quantity surveyor, basically the
Right.
numbers guys.
Okay.
And this is my experience when dealing with a contractor.
Right.
Uh, I was working with a contractor firm a few years ago,
Okay.
and the contractor had major issues. They couldn't pay their crew on the time, and everyone was on the edge. And one day I got moved to the side, and suddenly I ended up running a crew, and the crew was much more experienced than me.
Oh, okay.
They had more story, they had more scars, they had more knowledge than me.
Okay.
And at first I was so terrified. Yeah, I kept asking myself, am I ready for this? And am I ready for that? But Jane, I face it and dove in. And every day taught me something new. And starting from that day, I started asking a lot of questions to them,
Okay.
and I quickly learned who could give good advice and bad advice. And talking about the site condition, the site was so tough,
Was
and
it?
um, the deadline were tight, and stress was high every single day. And
Was it?
some days I felt berry, and other days I felt in the charge of small wins. And Jane, we solve the problem every day. We keep the project going at the same time.
Right.
But the pay issue was always there. The
Was
pay
it?
issue was always there. It was stressful. Uh,
Very
I
hard.
I tried to manage that, but it wouldn't work for the long term.
Right.
And finally, I made the better decision in my life, which I left my job as a quantity surveyor from the
Right.
company.
Okay.
So, walking away was hard, but unstable pay was a deal breaker.
Right.
And After that,
Understand that.
uh, I got an offer as a consultant, and it was calmer and more structured. The the environment was so great in a new company, and I met a bunch of my friends, and they helped me a lot in a tough situation.
Okay.
And looking back those 3 months, when I'm working in a contractor, I think they were brutal, but at the same time, they were valuable to me.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they taught me a lot about people. They taught me a lot about greed, and they taught me a lot about knowing when to walk away from something.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of my experience I had when I was working in construction a few
Yeah.
years ago.
That's great, Shahrul. And, we all have been in jobs like that. And I
Mm.
think those experiences are so valuable. They're really hard and tough to go through and very stressful. But the great thing is they give you perspective and insight and learnings that help you to become better. So they're not always, forever, but the lessons they give you are forever.
Jane, your career spans over 20 years across various industries.
Mm.
Was there a turning point that totally changed the direction of your career?
Yes. Yeah, there definitely was. And it was actually my divorce. So, which was back, I was 30 years, I was about 30, yeah, I was 30 years old at the time. So it was a while ago now. I had to move home with my parents and back in with them, which was,
Mm,
pretty knocks your confidence when you've already been married and sort of independent and then asking if you can move home.
mm,
And but the problem was it was in the GFC, so it was the global financial crisis. There were no jobs at the time. I had to quit
mm,
my job in the town where I was living with my ex-husband, and so I had to start again. And I just couldn't get a job, and I was applying for things and reaching out to businesses, and I'd been doing this work helping other people for so long. And I remember my mother saying to me, I was at my mother's dining table with my parents. My mother said to me, "Look, I don't know what you're doing, but it's
mm,
not working. You've got to work something out." And,
mm,
so she just said to me, "Well, what do you tell your clients?" And I was like, yeah, because I was having major imposter syndrome. I'm like, this is terrible. This is what I'm able to help everybody else with. And now I'm
mm,
in a situation where I'm struggling. And mum said, I think you're just too close to your own stuff. You're like this. So
mm,
she said, just what would be, and she did with me what I do with all my clients is she said, well, if you woke up tomorrow and you could do anything, what would it be? And I said, well, here's the job I would love. I would love to work for a large Australian organisation in retail. I know retail. I want to look. They need to have about 10,000 staff. I want to work
mm,
with all the leaders. I want to build their entire training capability in terms of like leadership capability as well as all the technical capability coming into stores. And they need to have a commitment to technology and innovation and be based in Brisbane. And my mum said to me, well, go find that. She goes, that's what you would tell your clients. So I think I was just so close to my own stuff coming out of trauma of divorce. It affects us all. It's not, me telling people what to do. I've been there. I know what it's like. And so I went out and I did a whole bunch of research and I found the company I wanted to work for, and that company was Super Retail Group, which is based here in Brisbane. It
mm,
was headed up by a CEO called Peter Birtles at the time, and I found the head recruiter, and I reached out to the recruiter and I said, "Look, I know you're not advertising roles at the moment, but I think I'm a great fit for you. Can I just come and meet you for 10 minutes? I'll just show you what I can do. And no commitment. I don't expect a job, but can I just show you what I can do?" And she said,
mm,
"Yeah, sure." Nobody ever does that. So I went to see her. I actually ended up having 30 minutes with her. And by the end of it, she said to me, "Look, I can see you're a really good fit for us, but we just don't have anything available at the moment. And I said, that's totally fine. You know, I was just really happy to talk to a human being because I'd been trying to apply for a lot of roles. And, but 2 weeks later, she reached out to me and she said, are
Mm,
you still available? And the person whose job you would be perfect for has actually just resigned. And
mm,
so I got the role. And throughout my whole career, I've never applied. I've had 9 jobs before I had my business, and I've never applied for jobs using job ads on websites and things like that. I've always been very clear about what I want, go find the right company, show them what I can do, see if I
mm,
can meet with them, even if they're not ready, but at least I've positioned myself ready for when they need me. And
mm,
it worked. It's always worked. And so today, I think the theme that's around that level of influence to have, I think what I find is that a lot of people wait and sit back and think, oh, I've got to wait for these things to come to me, that, you know, but you've got to have a sense of agency and you've got to have a sense of what you want, and you can create these things. You know, these were
mm,
things that I've worked with plenty of clients, whether they've, you know, like I do a lot of business. So I
uh-huh,
find that when I'm out working with people is without that sense of agency, they'll be
mm,
sitting back and waiting and hoping that things happen for them, that maybe the right thing will come along. But I say to people, you've got to be really clear about what you want because you can make it happen. There's plenty of
mm,
roles that I've created that I've gone to businesses and said, look, I think you need to do this. I can do it. So you can create your own opportunities. You don't have to sit around and wait for people to come to you because they just won't.
mm,
And you've got to be the instigator, see the vision, articulate it to people, and create those opportunities for yourself. And so today, as a business coach, I still do some executive coaching as well. But I'd
mm.
say to people, you know, that they have to be able to articulate their value, to be able to have the influence to create those opportunities. And if you can do that, you know,
Mhm.
anything is possible.
You mentioned about your family. You talk about your parents doesn't they don't support you. They tell you that yeah this you're not gonna make it on the business. Yeah, you know what I mean. So what do you feel on that moment?
Oh, that was more when I was applying for, you know, after divorce and, you know, but, you know, I was at the point where I had to really go on, you know, it was like, well, really go on government benefits, which
Mm,
we have here, which I could have done. And I'm not too proud to do that. That's fine. But the way I thought about it is, but there's someone out there who needs my help. There's someone out
mm,
there in this market who is
mm,
going, we're in a GFC. It's tough. We need to be able to find good people to come and help us. And I was like, I've got good referees. I've got great experience. I've
mm.
got the ability to help someone. So I can go and get government benefits. I'm not too proud to do that. But
Okay.
all I had in my mind was I've worked with a lot of small business owners and CEOs, and I know how tough that job is. And all I could think was someone needs my help. I've just got to go and find them.
Do you think what do the most influential people do differently than anyone else?
Yeah, there's a few things that they do. I think there's really 3 things they do, Shahrul. The
Yeah.
first one is they have clarity about who they are, the value they bring, who's the right fit for them. If they're in business, then who's our right customer? Who do I need to be working with? Who are the people who I'm best to help? And the same if it's career and having influence as an executive or a leader is, well, what are my career goals? What are my aspirations? How does that align with the business strategy? How do I influence the strategy? Where do I add the greatest value? So that's the first one is clarity. What do I want? And how does that align with where things are right now? The second thing is they get their communication channels right. So if they're in a business, then where do we communicate? What are the channels to get in front of those customers? So if they're a thought leader, a consultant, advisor, well, those customers are probably at conferences and events. So we need to work out, well, how do you speak in front of those people? You need to either speak at conferences and events or create your own events and invite them. They're on LinkedIn, they're on places like that. So what are the communication channels for that? And if they're in an organization as a leader or an executive, you're thinking about, well, the communication channels, there are people who have more influence on that. So I've got to think about politics and power and stakeholders, and I have to work around a system to get that to work. So but at the same time, you've got to know your communication channels. So if you don't know your communication channels and you haven't got the right communication channel and the right content and the right time, or the right, then you'll lose influence there. And the third thing that they do really well is so they have clarity, the communication, and the third thing is the control. The control is about how they manage their brand and for them as a leader and executive when things go wrong. So if it might be, how they show up. Do they apologize? Are they on the front foot? Do they admit a mistake? Do they, if something's wrong, what do they do to rectify it? Do they hide and run away and hope that people just don't notice? You look at things like, media interviews. We had the CEO of Optus last year. We had Optus, a phone network here that went down, and that affected our ambulance services here, and 3 people died as a result of that. So, the CEO of Optus got on TV and was very defensive and quite patronizing, actually. Instead, what she needed to do was apologize, say we take complete responsibility. We will not be having this happen ever again. And then she has to back it up with what they've implemented to make sure that doesn't happen again. And that's all about character, and that builds trust. If you can get all those 3 things working, then people will trust you. You'll have more influence if people trust you, because with control, that control side of it is, look, things happen, things go wrong. But the question is, it's not always about what happens, it's about what happens next. So if that's what you work out will build trust. Will that retain that customer? Will that retain the confidence in the public? Will that retain the trust in the team? So as a leader, we know things don't go to plan, but how do we communicate that to the team so that you can continue to get trust? And look, sometimes there's situations where you can't tell the team because of it's not the right time or it's confidential. But even just saying to the team, look, I can't talk about this at the moment, but what I can say is this, and here's what we're going to do. So, so I hope, does that answer your question?
So the first one, clarity, and
Clarity.
the second one is communication, and the third one is the control.
Control.
Right? Yeah. So one of most influential leaders I have ever known, Jane, is that they stay curious all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No matter how big they get or
Absolutely.
how successful they become, they never stop wanting to learn.
Always.
Yeah, they're not afraid to admit they don't know everything. They're totally fine with that, and they're comfortable admitting uncertainty instead of pretending to know everything.
Right.
And I think this mindset keeps them open to learning
Yes.
from anyone, no matter their title or experience. And for instance, you see them do the things like hosting regular Ask Me Anything session
Right.
with their teams, or maybe you watch some other podcaster. They do Q&A question with their fans,
Yes. Yeah.
and I think this session create a safe space for open conversation. And apart from that, the team members and fans will feel valued, heard, and encouraged to speak up. And Jane, even at the top, people like them, they ask questions instead of assuming they're right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, you know.
Well, you look at Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great. You know, he talks about the level five leader, and a level five leader has humility. And if
Mm,
you've got humility, that's where the curiosity shows up in the brand. So they're open without judgment, you know, being able to understand and get that insight. And I think if you've got a leader that looks like that, they've got the balance of the confidence as well as the humility and the ability to ask questions and be curious. And I remember Peter Birtles, who was the CEO at Super Retail Group. One day I said to him, now this is at the time it was a $100 million company. He'd just won CEO of the year here in Australia.
yeah.
And one day I was after some figures for something that I wanted to present to a leadership team. And I said, do we have these kinds of figures? And he said, yes, I can get them for you. And he said, I'll have them to you on Wednesday. And it got to
Hmm.
Wednesday and I was working late because the figures still hadn't come through. And I was presenting on Thursday and I was like, oh God, I really don't want to hassle him, but I really need those figures. And first thing Thursday morning, I used to get into the office early, and he was in the office early that day, and he came to my desk and he said, Jane, I've come to see you. I am so sorry. I know that I promised you those figures yesterday and they haven't arrived. Today's Thursday. I will have them to you by 10 o'clock this morning. Is that okay? And I said, that's fine, Peter. I'm not going to have a crack at the CEO. Don't worry. And I said, but I would be so grateful if you could, because it would just really help me with these leaders and it would help you because, this message will get through. And he said, Jane, one of our values is integrity. And integrity
Mm,
was that I told you that you would have those figures and you don't have them. And he said, just because I'm the CEO doesn't mean that value doesn't apply to me. It applies to me even more. So he said, I've come to apologize. You will have those figures at 10 o'clock. Now,
mm,
that level of humility that's brand management. Like that's the control. And you're right. Curiosity is a big part of that, but the humility that forms a big part of that control of the brand. So you're absolutely right.
if someone wants to become a thought leader, what is the first step they should take?
A top leader.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, you know, I think one of the things, there's so many things like if I go back to what the research says that great leaders, first of all, they obviously have some level of technical skill because they need the credibility to be able to, they have some understanding of the context that they're working in. So that
Mm,
helps. There was some research that was done by an executive search firm. It was a global exec search firm, and I think it was I can't remember if it was out of the US or Singapore, but it's quoted in the book called Talk by Boris Goisenberg. And in
mm,
his research, in the research that they did, they looked at what is the number one skill that leaders need to have. If they've already got technical capability, what are the skills as a leader they need to have? And guess what the number one was?
yeah. What is that?
The ability to communicate.
Wow.
They particularly said was being able to present because you've got to convey a message. So if you can present information, if you can communicate to a group, then they said that above all the other leadership capabilities, there's lots of them in terms of, performance and mindset, resilience, there's all those things. But they said you could have all those things, but if you can't communicate, then you're going to struggle. And that was the thing this exec search firm looked for. So the things that I look for, there's a great quote by Henry Kissinger. Was it Henry Kissinger? No, it wasn't Henry Kissinger. It was the gentleman who was the speechwriter for Ronald Reagan. Um, and I'll think of it in a minute. But he said,
Mm,
every time you speak, you're auditioning for a position of leadership. So when we can present, when we can show that we can communicate with people and convey information, that creates trust. And if you can,
yeah.
And if you can create trust, then you can start to bring people on board with you because it shows openness. If you can use the right gestures, if you know how to get a message through, layering of message, your eye contact, all those things. There's a great book written by my good friend Dr. Louise Marler called Gravitas, and it's about building trust and respect. If you can communicate and to be able to create that kind of influence through gravitas, presence, presenting, then the rest of those other skills will fall into place. But those other skills, without the communication, the ability to influence and have that gravitas, then you're going to find it hard.
Jane, we live in the modern world, and many problems come from poor communication. And the rising of social media and digital platform make it harder for people to build the real connection.
Yeah.
Why is clear communication so important for leadership today?
Oh, well, I think about there's so many things going on in the world. Like if you look at, like you said, on a phone, we've got AI, what do you call them?
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah, what do you call them? Deep fakes. So
Deep
you've
fake.
got, you've got deep fakes. So people, and they've already come out of, if you look at the trust barometer, which comes out each year, so the level of trust that people have and the confidence that they have in businesses, and I'm talking also employees around their bosses and senior management, is the level of trust is coming down. So the industries that have the highest levels of trust are paramedics and ambulance, nurses, where your health is at risk and you're trusting someone to look after you. The doctors, they have, really high levels of trust. But things like government, that's depleting. Banks, they're depleting. So why it matters is is because the level of trust in the world is depleting. And so for us as leaders, and that trust is coming from, like we said, deep fakes, AI, everyone's questioning it. Is that true? Is that real? Is that a real video? I saw a dog doing a video yesterday doing sit-ups. And like I showed my dad, he's like, can the dog really do that? I've never seen a dog
Yeah.
do that. I said, it's not real, Dad. So you've got those people who are more wary of things. Is that true? Is that fake? And then those who actually go, oh, but I saw that. It was a video. So the level of misinformation in the world that's going on, and it's creating people questioning, well, I need to see it for real. I need to, unless I see this person live, unless I see this person face to face, unless I see, like a live webinar or something like that, I need to know that this person is in real time. I think that is what is having, and I can go and find any information, even ChatGPT. People aren't trusting that, there's a move to things like Claude or Perplexity because they go, oh, the things that ChatGPT is giving me is garbage. Like I need to, people are trying to find the truth, and they want to find the truth because they want to know what to trust. And so if you can work out, I think those things, you've particularly around the misinformation, fake news, all those things, is that's why it's become even more important today. And so today it's about, well, today it's even more important today because you've got to just be so intentional. But the more that you can create real experiences for people, the more that you'll build trust.
You mentioned about AI before, and right now people love to using AI, especially on their work. Uh, what do you think about AI?
Oh, isn't it incredible? Are you using it a lot, Shahrul? Have you
Uh,
been sort of trying different things, or are you wanting to sit back and wait, or what do you find?
I do a lot of research, especially about my
Okay.
guests, when
Yeah,
I want
okay.
to do the podcast. But yeah, I think it's not good for the long term,
Right.
right? I think because it affect our thinking to
Yes,
think, to
I agree.
write to write on the paper,
Yes.
And yeah, from my side, I think this technology uh cannot cannot survive for the long term.
Right.
Human have a story, human have a narrative, human
Yes.
have a special talent.
Yes.
So we have to uh we have to expand our ability to do
Yes.
some work. We have to think or something like that.
I agree with you. I
Yeah.
actually run thought leadership boot camps for this exact reason. Well, I've been
Mm,
running the boot camp since 2017,
mm,
and they're around helping people to think, come up with their ideas. What is it that you're trying to say? What is your thought leadership? Then when AI came in, everybody went, "Oh, great. So I can come to the boot camp and I can do it all through AI." So I can do, more. Normally we do 52 pieces of IP in 2 days. They go, "Great, I can do 150 now." And I'm like, "Actually, no, that's not the idea." Because you're absolutely right. I did have somebody who came along who said, "Well, I'm going to do it all through AI." They finished in half the time. But the problem was, then I said to them, "Okay, so now get up and present the top three ideas to me without your notes."
mm,
And they couldn't do it. So you're right, is
mm,
that, and you've probably seen that MIT research that came out last year, that where they showed that the retention, the ability to retain the information and continue to develop it and repeat it, means that, the ability to do that is gone because AI has done it, because now you can't remember it. It's not your IP now. Like that wasn't. So so I agree with you in that there's that problem that people go, "Oh, I just put it in ChatGPT," and I have to go, "No,
mm,
no." I'm going to ask you, what do you think? What is your opinion? How does that relate to that? What do you think? Don't put it in ChatGPT. We can use Perplexity, we can use Claude to find research to support our claims. That
mm,
can help us. And that's certainly sped up that process. However, I think in terms of, I think for brainstorming ideas and things like that is good. But when it comes to really creating the influence that you want to make, is that your level of expertise, and when you're trying to articulate value, if you can't remember that, how are you going to do that on the spot? Like, it's the same with being in an interview with you, Shahrul. Like,
mm.
if I had done all my work through ChatGPT, I wouldn't be able to answer your questions. But
Yeah.
if you've done the work,
You don't
then
have a time to memorize all of that.
yeah, that's right. But if I've done the work, then I remember, because I've written books about it, I've written the blogs, I've run workshops, I teach, coach clients on it. I've used all the IP that I've
Mm,
built over the years. So I think there's an over reliance on it at times. The things that I do think that it is good for is to improve the capacity of the team in terms of the support. So, for example, I work with a lot of thought leaders, as you know, and
mm,
for them, they will often have team members. Let's say, for example, they might need to put an event on, and they're looking at events in Sydney or whatever. I mean, locations in Sydney. So
mhm,
instead of sitting there going, you know, restaurant, Sydney, 5 stars, like some of those things can, go into Perplexity, Claude, ChatGPT, whatever it might be, and go, let's have a look at, give me I've got this type of group, they're this level, they've got, I've got a group of executives, I need to put on a function for them, I want to invite them to it, I want it to have this kind of atmosphere, what would you recommend? So something like that can really help improve the capacity of the team so they can come up with some suggestions in a fraction of the time. So I think some of those administrative tasks, so that their brains are overspent more on critical thinking, rather than losing a lot of time, with those sorts of things.
mm. Why does personal branding matter more today than ever?
Yeah, well, and I think it's come back to your question. I really see personal branding as a big part of leadership, and it's, because you know, well, the thing is, we all have a personal brand, whether we like it or not. The
Mhm.
question is have you got the one that you want? Because
Mhm.
you have more agency, you have more control and more influence over your personal brand than you might think.
Mhm.
So we can be at the peril of what other people say, think about us, whatever. But my experience has been is that you can consciously choose the aspects of your brand and what you most want to be known for. So if you want, my question is why it matters is because there's a world of noise out there. The average person, you know, checks their phone 120 times a day. They're spending 2.5 hours on social media scrolling, you know, so people don't have the discipline to block noise. So if people don't have the discipline to block noise, they're receiving noise. And that, my question is are you being seen, and is the signal that you're sending to the market in line with your goals and aspirations? Because if it's not, what happens is, you know, particularly with jobs or people with businesses, is they'll say, oh, you know what, I think I'll just do this, or I think, you know, I don't know, I'll just, another job will come along. And I say to them, or they might be applying for another role or go down a different path in their job, in their business. And I say to them, always, and it was a piece of advice that my boss said to me many years ago, was that she said to me, I always say to people, and she was the head of HR in a big government department, and she said, I always say to people, always know what you're running to, not from. And if you
Mhm.
know what you're running to, then you're far more intentional about what you're going to be able to achieve rather than just what's given to you. Because a lot of people aren't, they're always running from something. So I say to them, change that to what are you running to? And if you can do that, you know, then you're going to build a really strong personal brand, because then you can build the brand around that.
What mistake do professionals often make when trying to build influence online, especially on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, You know, something that people often have is they really have a challenge to sometimes have the awareness of their own biases. So,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm working with people, I'll say to them, tell me how you use LinkedIn currently. And they say, oh, you know, I just scroll through. It just seems to be full of noise. I do, you know, I have a bit of a look and then I get off it and I ignore messages. And so we all have biases in terms of being a receiver of information or being a participant or a user of LinkedIn. And when you shift over to being the person who's using it more intentionally for your brand and for your growth, the problem is that those biases quite often interfere with the the activities that take the growth. So to give you an example, I had a lady this week, and she's another business coach. So we have interesting conversations because she likes having a business coach, but and I don't mind being challenged, but she challenges a lot of things I
Mhm.
suggest to do. But I have plenty of evidence to show her the reasons not to do it, or to do the way I'm suggesting. And so she will often say things to me like, yeah, but I don't like it when I have people do that to me. Or I don't like it, you know, for example, messaging. Or they'll say, yeah, but I think that looks too noisy. Or I think this, or I think that. And said, you know, so the challenge you've got here is that you're reacting to what's coming through. And guess what? You're not your customer. So we have to think about the customer. We're not thinking about you.
Uh,
And so that is really the biggest problem, is the bias it creates. And so what they believe is, I don't want to be that noisy person putting all this content out there. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to reach out to people because I don't want to seem pushy. I don't want to, I think people should come to me. And I go, that's all fine. But once you've built a $10 million brand, we can do that. But
mhm.
up until then, we've got to do the hard yards here. And if you can come with empathy for your customer, not the bias that you have for yourself and be so self-focused, then we can start to get the growth. But the biggest problem is people think that their experiences for themselves are what their customers are experiencing for them, and they're not. They're two very different things, and that's what holds them back. On LinkedIn, especially.
One of the big mistake I made on LinkedIn is treating the platform like some boring resume.
Oh, yes, of
Yeah.
course. That's right.
I used to post my job title and a few achievements,
Yes,
and I was thinking that would make me look professional. But the truth is, Jane, nobody is nobody connect with a list of bullet points. Yeah, people want story. They want to see the human behind the profile,
that's right.
and I realized I was missing the point at first. And it's remind me that LinkedIn isn't just a place to show it off.
Yes,
It's a place to engage, share, and actually build the real connection
yes,
with stranger or people. And
yes,
at first, I felt exposed when I started posting about my personal experience.
yes,
I worry people would think I was unprofessional or oversharing, and some posts flop, some posts really took off, and that's okay. It's part of learning what works and what doesn't work.
yes.
And now, from my perspective, LinkedIn feels way less like a resume,
Yeah, great.
and more like a community.
That's the way. You're
Uh,
spot on, Shahrul. Otherwise, if it looks like a resume, it looks like an obituary and you're dead.
mm, yeah,
We want it to look like you're alive, you're a human.
yeah,
People have that innate want to connect. So I'm glad you've had that insight. And the storytelling, as you say,
yeah.
people, I read a great quote from, do you follow Alex Hormozy?
The motivation guy.
Motivation guy, yeah,
Yeah,
$100 million deals, 100 million leads,
yeah.
and he had a great quote yesterday where he said, if you can share your stories about your challenges and what worked for you, you will grow much faster than talking about what others learnt and in their growth. And I was
Mm,
like, that's actually very true. And I think that's a great quote because what that creates is understanding. And,
hmm
people go, oh, so it's not just me that has that problem. You had that problem too, really?
You know, for a while, I even stepped back from LinkedIn and focus more on YouTube. Focus more on
Ah,
YouTube
yes.
because
Okay.
of my podcast.
Right.
And back then, I only had about 1,000 connection on that platform.
Yeah.
And
Still a lot though.
right now, how hard it is to juggle both things at once.
Yes.
So I decided to quit temporarily on LinkedIn
Right.
and
Okay.
focus my work on YouTube.
I see.
But I decided I wanted to come back to the platform eventually. Maybe not right away, but definitely in the future. Is that something you believe early on in your career that you no longer believe now?
Yes. I used to think that you had to be really extroverted to be successful.
Mm,
And and so I'm an introvert. So most people think I'm more extroverted than I am, but I'm actually far more introverted. I like being
yeah.
around people, you know, but I'm a creator at heart. So I like space. I like time to think. But I do love the balance of training and coaching and being able to have a balance of time with people. But I do like the space to create as well. But
Mm,
the challenge I always felt with that was, well, yeah, but all the successful people seem to be really extroverted. So, I'm not going to be successful. And
yeah.
so that was a belief that I had, that I just thought, oh, well, I can't change my personality. I'm just not going to be as successful as other people. So I just have to accept that. But that's actually not true. So
Yeah.
it's if you actually just have to find how you get your energy the most. And some people, if they're more extroverted, they deliver in a different way, and that's okay. You can still be very successful. I've definitely learnt that you can be very successful and be introverted as well. That's absolutely true. And not only have I had mentors who are quite introverted and very successful, I've coached clients who are quite introverted and very successful. And so, yeah, we've definitely debunked that one.
Jane, I thought one of the best podcaster in the world, Steven Butler.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that guy is also an introvert.
Yeah,
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
I
And
think so. Yeah,
yeah, and look at what happened to his success right now. He had more than 10 million subscribers on
I
YouTube.
know, right?
Yeah, I think one of the best podcaster in the world, and
Yeah.
his show was so dominant right now. The second
Yes.
place behind Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Was there a moment when you felt like quitting, and what helped you continue afterwards?
Oh, yeah, probably for many, Shahrul, like, COVID was when we went, what are we going to do?
Mm,
So, when COVID hit, I had a year's worth of work in the calendar. So, that was keynote speaking, workshops, everything. And in a day, it was gone. Everything was
mm,
cancelled. So, that was when I went, what on earth am I going to do? And I thought, okay, so is anyone going to take me to work for them? Do I have a job? I didn't really know what to do. And so I thought, okay, so I either need to apply for a job and stop doing what I'm doing now and see if I can. And I had a lot of government experience, so I knew I could probably pick something up in government and maybe try to go back there. But at all, I thought, okay, well, I'll apply for jobs, but in the meantime, I'll just keep. I had a handful of coaching clients,
mm,
so I just went, I don't know. All I do is so I apply for jobs, but what I did do was I went out and surveyed all my clients and even the ones who had cancelled. And I went to past clients as well because I thought, okay, if I'm going to give up, before I give up and start being serious about applying for jobs, I've got to understand what the customers want. And if I
mm,
can understand what they want and am I giving them what they want? Because maybe I'm giving them what's relevant to them now. I don't know. And I went to them and I just said, I don't know what to give you. So
mm,
here's a list of things I could do, but tell me, what do you need most from me right now? And it was funny at the time. I put, brand storytelling. I put presentation skills. I put a list of all these things. And one of my clients, who I spoke with her about it before, talking to people, she goes, "You haven't got sales on there." And I went,
mm,
"Oh, but there's heaps of people who are better at sales than teaching sales than me." And she said to me, "But no one does it like you do it." She said, "I reckon you should put sales on that list." And I put sales on the list before, and I went out to all my past clients and I said, "I don't know what to do right now. It's COVID. All I can think is ask you what you need." And I put sales on the list, and guess what they ticked?
uh, that's what happened after that.
They ticked sales. They all wanted
Oh,
sales. They all
yeah.
wanted sales help. So that took my practice through, got me through COVID. So I was just about to give up. I really felt like
Mm,
quitting. But like your mentor that you said, you had a leader who was curious. That's exactly what I had to do. I just went, I don't know what to do. I've never been in this situation before. All I
mm,
can think to do is go and I'll just do what I know what to do, and that is ask my customers what do they need. And
mm,
that was what they said. So, and it was, I always thought people were better at, I'm like, yeah, I've taught sales for years, but it's not been a real specialty. But as a result of that, that's now become a specialty. And I do a lot of sales coaching and sales training now.
Who had the biggest influence on you as you were growing as a leader?
It's hard to choose just, one. There's been so many. I've been so fortunate, Shahrul, to have great leaders. I've also had very poor leaders as well, but I've had the gift of seeing both, to be able to see the really good ones shine. The first
Mm,
has been my parents. You know, they've always taught me respect, and always respect for yourself, respect for others, and empathy and kindness and helping people. So I think they've been great examples for me. They've not been in big CEO roles or anything. They're very service oriented people. And so I think that's been a big part. I also had fantastic lead teachers growing up at school, and who had a big influence on me, and really having my influence as a leader. And then I had really great bosses growing up. I didn't have a lot of male bosses. I had a couple, but I had mostly female leaders who I had great examples to learn by. And one in particular, Tracy Mathers is her name. She's here in Brisbane. She was the daughter of the gentleman who was knighted, the family I worked for. And what she really taught me was how to run a business, and how to run a business that's a very customer centric business, customer service. And because, you know, your branding is all about service. It is all about, it's those two things I see as very intertwined. They're not two separate things. They connect, and because it's the embodiment of brand. I had there's been a lot of them, Shahrul. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Everything I've learned has been from them. So yeah, I think I've been very fortunate, and but the thing that they've all had in common is that they've all been great communicators.
Jane, thank you again for taking the time to join me today.
Thank
And
you.
I really enjoy hearing your perspective
Me
and
too. Thank you.
your story, your insight. And I hope everyone listening really took away something meaningful from this conversation. So where can people connect with you online and follow your work?
Thank you, Shahrul. I've been really grateful to be part of your show today. Um,
Mhm.
they can jump on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. I have
Mhm.
Instagram, Facebook, or they can jump on the website. There's a few things that are on the website that might be helpful for people, Shahrul. I've put
Mhm.
that if they go to the area if they go on the website, they'll see an area that's called Toolkit, and
Yeah.
they can take some questionnaires and different things to identify their level of influence in their businesses, and for business growth. So some of those things might be helpful for your audience. But thank you again for having me.
Yeah. I also encourage listeners to check out Jane's resources. I include the links to his social media and other platforms in the show notes. Take a few minutes to explore and see which idea resonate with you. And once you do, feel free to share your thoughts or reaction below. I've been reading them whenever I can. So, Jane, we come to the final part of our conversation, and this is my favorite way to end every episode. I call it the last 30-second segment. Before we land off the plane, I like to leave our audience with something that stick, something that they can carry long after the episode is over. And you think about those people listening right now. Some might be at a crossroad, and some might be struggling to find direction in their life,
Mm.
and some might have been told it's too late, and others might feel overwhelmed, uncertain, or be dealing with personal battle that we can't see. And I want you to imagine that you could speak directly into their hearts and minds. Maybe you could offer them one insight or one action to take right now. So, Jane, I'll pass the mic to you one final time. If you had 30 seconds to motivate or inspire someone, what would be your final message you share with them?
Oh, no pressure, Shahrul. Woo. All right. I would say that you can achieve so much more than you possibly think. You know, if you're
Mhm.
sitting there at your desk, you're listening to this while you're driving your car, you know, you're at the gym, you're out walking, whatever you're doing, if you're thinking these things happen to other people, people's success is, you know, they were lucky. There were those things that, I just don't have that environment or those things. Maybe you didn't have, a good experience growing up and things like that. So the odds are stacked against you. But what I can tell you is that if you just keep it to yourself and you don't ask for help, if you ask for help, then you're going to be able to move, start to get the right people around you because you have got so much more in you than you think you do. You're only seeing like a tenth of what your capacity and ability is. So go out there, dream big, think about all, do the vision board, do what you want to achieve, imagine it, draft it, write it up, be clear about what you want, work out who do you need to talk to, who's done that before. Go talk to them, they'll point you in the right direction, and then just get started. Just put one foot in front of the other. And if you can do that, you're well and truly on the way to achieving everything you imagined and more.
Beautiful. Jane Anderson, everybody. So, Jane, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
See you again. Have a great day.